So with a rational equation like this, although it's better to think of as a proportion, anytime you have a fraction equal to a fraction, you can just simply multiply. So when we cross multiply, right, we just multiply denominator with opposite numerator and we distribute, we get a 3x plus 9 equals 6x minus 42. You guys can solve a problem like this all day, right? So I'm not really worried about solving a linear equation like this. There's one thing to note about problems like this is that we have these excluded values, the values that our number can't be, that our variable can't be, right? But we know from what we've been talking about in this unit that x equals -3 and x equals 7, these are our excluded values. And because x cannot equal them, this also means that our answer cannot be an excluded value. It's not allowed. So what you guys need to do is check every one of your problems, and once you solved it, check to make sure that your answer isn't an excluded value. So we call that checking for an extraneous solution. Check for extraneous solution. We said in our radical unit, an extraneous solution is you did all the math correctly, you got an answer, but when you put it in, it doesn't work. If you got an answer, so for example, if we had solved this problem and got an x equals 7, that couldn't happen because 7 is an excluded value. It's not the answer to this problem, but if it were, that would be an issue, right? This one works out, if you go through the process, it doesn't become an excluded value, right? Okay, but we don't need to spend a lot of time on this. You guys know how to cross multiply. I'm not worried about your cross multiplying skills. So let's move on from problems like this. We don't need to spend a lot of time on that. This is what I want to spend most of the class on. So take a quick second here to jot down these notes that we're going to get rid of fractions. So we see a problem like this written on the board. The last thing we want to do is have fractions all over the place. So our first goal is to get rid of those fractions. So in problems like this, if you end with fractions after one step, something went wrong. I'm actually going to add a note here. I'm going to say your second line of work should have no fractions. If you have fractions after one step, something went wrong. Yes, there are other ways to solve these equations, but we're only going to talk about one method for solving. Okay? And that method is multiplied by the least common denominator. So let's talk about that because that becomes the most important thing. The way that we talked about it last week was we look at each different factor and identify them and put them together, each different factor. So if we look at this problem, working left to right, x minus 1 is a factor, so it goes to our least common denominator. 2 is a factor, so it goes to our least common denominator. And 3 is still a factor. All of these are different factors. Why we're listing them. None of them have anything in common. So then we'd write this as 6 times x minus 1. Don't distribute the 6. Talk about y in a second. Don't want to though. There's no reason to multiply out here. Okay. Now, just kind of as a side note, so not something to write down, if our denominator here had been a 6, in terms of different factors when you're listing them, we work left to right to list different factors. X minus 1 is a factor. 2 is a factor. This 2 we already wrote down, right? So you don't need to write it down again because they already share that in common. It's a factor that's already been written. So then we'd write a 3 here. So had this number been a 6, we actually would have had the same common denominator, right? Just something to think about. That was a 3. All right. So the most important thing is multiplying by that least common denominator. So let's do that. 6 times x minus 1. We said multiply everything. So on your paper, actually write 6 times x minus 1. 6 times x minus 1. 6 times x minus 1. You're going to multiply everything. Multiply everything by your least common denominator. And then notice what happens when we do that. X minus 1 crosses off with x minus 1. You're left with a 6 times 2. 6 times 2. 2 divides into 6 3 times. So you're going to be, right, plus comes down, you get a 3 times 3 times x minus 1. Right? 3 times 3 times x minus 1. And then 3 goes into 6 twice. So this equals 10 times 2 times minus 1. Now we do actually need to do the multiplication here, right? So this is a 12. 3 times 3 is 9, and then you distribute the 9. So plus 9x minus 9 times 2 is 20, so distribute the 20 is 20x minus 20. And then this is just a linear equation. You guys have solved 1,000 of these this year. So the x's to one side and the constants to the other. Subtract the 9x, add 20. So 12 plus 20 is 32. Minus 9 is 23. 20x minus 9x is 11x. Divide by that 11. It looks like we're going to get x is 23 over 11. It's kind of a weird answer, but that's okay. We're going to get a bunch of fractions here. Nothing wrong with getting fractions. That's an answer. The only thing that does matter is that our answer is not the excluded value. So just do a mental check. You don't need to write it down. 1 is the excluded value. If you plug in a 1 here, you get out 0. You can't get out 0. Your answer is 1. No worries. We're good. So all we're going to do is write the least common denominator up here. With this first one, as you write this, I would work left, right, listing your different factors. So you have a 3, like that is part of your common denominator. You have an x squared, that is part of your common denominator. Now, is x built into x squared? No. Yeah? Is x squared built into x squared? All right, so this is it. 3x squared is your common denominator. That's it. Don't need to multiply by anything else, because then it would be a common denominator, not a least common denominator. 3x squared is the smallest one, they all go in. Now the problem like this next one, I would factor, whether you do this factoring in your head or on paper, it doesn't matter as long as you know that it breaks down. Because as we find our least common denominator, and if you work left, list different factors, you get 2, you get an x minus 4, and then you don't need to write x minus 4 again because it's already written here. Yeah. That's also fine. 2x minus 8. Yeah, as long as, because you know that this is just missing a 2. So then as you're solving these problems, and I'm just going to stop right here, 3x squared, 3x squared, 3x squared, multiply the numerators, everything, by your LCD. Do the same thing here. 2 times x minus 4, 2 times x minus 4, 2 times x minus 4. Once you get the common denominator there and written, that's the biggest thing. So then let's just start crossing stuff off. 3x squared goes into 3x squared once, so you're left with a 1. X crosses off with just one of those x's, so you get negative 2 times 3x, so that's minus 6x. X squared divides x squared 1, you're left with equals 6. This is now just a two-step problem. We subtract the 1 over. Minus 1, negative 6x is 5, divided by negative 6. X is negative 5 over 6. That's the answer, and then we do a mental check. 0 is the excluded value. Our answer is not 0. We're okay. Right? A quick mental check. Do the same thing on the next problem. Just crossing stuff off. Well, actually, on this first fraction, there's nothing to cross off. So this is 4, 2 times 2, right? 4 times x minus 4. 2 times x minus 4 divides with 2 times x minus 4. You get a plus 1. X minus 4 divides with x minus 4, so this equals 6. We'll then distribute and then start combining like terms. The 4x minus 16 is 5. add 16, 4x is 21. So x is 21 over 4. Then do a quick mental check. Your excluded value in this problem is 4. Our answer is not 4, so we're okay. This first one, everybody, what did you guys get for your least common denominator? M minus 1 for LCD is m minus 1. So multiply everything by it. M minus 1, m minus 1, m minus 1. And then we start simplifying. M minus 1 divides with itself. You're left with an m. Let's rewrite this. This is kind of messy. So plus m minus 2 times m minus 1. And then m minus 1 divides with itself equals 5. We have to word here for how we multiply. FOIL. So first, outside, inside, last. M squared minus 3m plus 2 is 5. And then when you combine like terms, you should get an m squared. And this includes moving the 5 to the other side because you can't factor if you have something on the right side. So combining like terms should give us an m squared minus 2m minus 3 is 0. We raise our hand to factor this for, please, Xavier. And then we're only done once we solve this. So m equals 3, m equals negative 1. These are our two solutions. And then the one thing we have to check is it an excluded value? Is it, are they? So our excluded value is a positive 1. We got a negative 1 out. Those aren't the same thing. So we're good to go. These work. All right, then the next one. Everybody, what's our least common denominator? 12x. If you're unsure, let's break it down, right? So we've been working left to right, and that's fine for this problem. Now, we should notice when you look at 12, 3, and 2, the smallest number they all go into is 12. So 12x is the only possibility here. If you want to think about it like factors, 12 is 2 times 2 times 3 times x. If you were working left to right, just different factors, you would start with a 2, which is already shown here. Then you'd have a second 2. Then you'd have a 3. Then you'd have an x. And then you go to this next one. 3 is already represented. X is already represented. So 2 times 2 times 3 times x is 12x. You can always break things down in factors if you want. 12x is our LCD here. Multiply everything by 12x. 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 And then start simplifying. So 2 goes into 12 6 times. We'll be left with a 6x. 12x goes into 12x once. You're left with a minus 5. 3x goes into 12x 4 times. Distribute to get 8x squared minus 32. Get everything to one side. 0 equals 8x squared minus 6x minus 27. Yes, this is a challenging leading coefficient factor problem, but it is factorable and it does work. Alex, you got it for us? So let's double check this, and we check that by checking the outside and inside parts in FOIL. So 4x times 3 is 12x, negative 9 times 2x is negative 18x. Yes, this works out. They add to a negative 6 in the middle, that's what we want. Good, we did it correctly. And obviously it's a very quick way to go through, but this is just guess and check, that's your method. When you solve this, you get x is 9 over 4. You get x is negative 3 over 2. Those are our two solutions. You go back up to the top. Our excluded value is 0. Neither of these are 0. We're good to go.